Anaconda.
Anaconda.
Anaconda. Anaconda.
Oh.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to that blockbuster new release wall of our memory, we grab a copy off the shelf, we pop in our VCR, and we see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
The password is regurgitate.
Together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. I can't get the void out of my mouth. Oh boy. So we're itching to get into this one, guys. So as the title suggests, we're going to take a look at Anaconda.
What's your name?
Anaconda.
Anaconda what?
No, just Anaconda.
Anaconda.
From 1997 this week, and we can't wait. We're chomping at the bit, Mike.
Oh yeah, we're gonna. I can't even do it anymore. Yes, this is great. We're gonna strangle you with a great movie.
Okay. All right. So I think Sir Mix-a-Lot said it best, Mike, when he said, "My Anaconda don't want none."
None.
And
unless
I can.
Unless you got Ice Cube, hon.
Yeah. So, guys, we're a little punch drunk. We had to watch this one this afternoon. Typically, we get a day or two in between with our viewings and recording, but we were pressed for time, and each of us had to watch this movie by themselves quickly to get it in. And I don't think we've quite recovered yet. So we rationalized by saying it would be fresh in our brain, but
yeah, this went down hard, and it like a bad meal. It came back up.
He got it up. Yeah, I got hit by a car or something. All right, so let's get in it while we're still cognizant. All right, so this was directed by a guy named Louis Loza. He did a movie called Sniper with Tom Berenger, Mike, so it must be good. Also did The Specialist with Sharon Stone and Sylvester Stallone.
Oh,
yeah, so that explains a little bit. It was written by a guy named Hans Bauer, who also wrote Titan A.E., which is one of the bigger failures of the animated films in 1990. Also authored by a writing team. We know these guys, Mike. Jack Epps and Jim Cash. They brought us Dick Tracy and the Flintstones, Turner and Hooch. Top Gun got thrown in there somehow. Legal Eagles and Sister Act, Mike. That's kind of their repertoire. Those two wrote those together.
It's quite a variety. After Flintstone and Dick Tracy, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then you throw Sister Act in there, I was like, well, okay, that's a swerve.
Yeah, it had a budget of $45 million.
Holy crap!
Yeah, released late spring, April 11, 1997.
Oh wow! So getting near that 30-year mark, that's kind of scary.
So this is a movie in Hollywood's long-standing traditions of the B movie, monster movie market, Mike. So they're more concerned on making cash than making art, but that doesn't mean that they didn't give it their best shot. So, Mike, why don't you walk us through the container of feeder mice that brought this epic to the screen?
That hits the ride on a I'm surprised he didn't get top billing, but he was like, I guess, third in the cast list here. But it was Jon Voight, and he's there to take you on another river cruise.
Just driving around in Jon Voight's car.
But instead of squealing like a pig, he gets eaten and regurgitated by a large snake, almost like the pencil he left in the car in Seinfeld. I love his accent. The Paul Cerrone. I love that. He almost pulls it off. It kind of comes and goes a little bit.
He claims he used Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride as inspiration, but it sounds to me a lot like Tony Montana.
Yeah, it did sound Italian. I had that written down. In fact, it sounded more like like a throw off from The Sopranos than than somebody from Paraguay or wherever he was supposed to be from. I have no idea. He's our. Well, we'll get to him. He does a big heel turn, obviously. With a ponytail like that, what else could you expect? Yeah, our
You're
top.
saying it's going to come up again, Mike?
Yes.
Just like him? He got it up.
Yeah. Just like he might wink at you. Jennifer Lopez, she gets top billing in the movie. And Jenny on the Block.
Yeah.
All I can say about her is it must have been kind of cold on the set during a lot of the filming.
Yeah, not a lot of bras in the budget. Apparently.
No, a lot of tight T-shirts for Jenny. She kind of comes and goes from the makeup. It's interesting to see that during the movie. There's some continuity issues, but hey,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Okay.
Ice Cube, NWA member. He's there to help provide some great soundtrack music. And in case you didn't know it, he's from L.A.
Never came up.
I don't know if the movie conveyed that enough for us. Only thing that surprised me was there wasn't a comment about him swimming. There was nothing.
Oh
about,
yeah.
I thought for sure that was going to be a throwaway line, especially from a screenplay writer of the Flintstones. Corey Wooler, she was briefly in this movie. She really didn't get much to work with. She's just kind of Gary's little girlfriend, but she's a famous TV star from people who may have seen MTV back in the day from Remote Control. And was in Sliders, for one of my favorite shows for a few years. And
with John Rice Davies, who was in Anaconda 3.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, wow.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon established. Let's proceed.
Her boyfriend in the movie is Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Who is kind of playing Owen Wilson in this movie.
Yeah, real stretch.
Yeah, he really kind of, it was the same character he played in this really cheesy movie called The Haunting. I don't know if you saw that, but instead of getting eaten by a snake, in that one he gets his head cut off, which is probably a little bit better death, but this one, it was very satisfying to see him get digested. Eric Stoltz, who is probably still regretting he wasn't Marty McFly, is lucky because he was sidelined most of this movie. He gets to just stay in the boat cabin after he's poisoned. And you kind of see him here and there, but luckily he gets to sit a lot of it out. Danny Trejo's in this movie. He dies really early, of course.
Absolutely.
Of course he dies. It's the Sean Bean effect. But I was surprised. I thought he had more of a meaty role in the movie, but no, he doesn't get eaten by a snake. So there's that. And then, a real slimy guy. He's usually slimy, and he was bad in the Titanic, and he was bad in The Mummy. Jonathan Hyde. He's kind of a pompous English guy.
Oh, the Downton Abbey guy.
Yeah, but he's Australian. He's an Australian actor, but he's trying to play an English, stuffy guy, and he eventually becomes buddies later at the end. But he meets his end in a very horrific way too.
Yeah,
but he was in one of my favorite shows, The Strain. He was,
that's right. He was
the bad old guy who was like the multi-zillionaire who was pulling all the strings, bringing the Anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's your cast.
All right, well done. Thank you, Mike. Just a couple follow-up notes on the cast. Jenny from the Block got this role after Gillian Anderson turned it down.
Wow.
The role of Danny, played by Ice Cube here. He's still working on his acting chops a little bit here, but he pulled it off. That was offered to Wesley Snipes and Martin Lawrence first. Was also considered by Chris Farley, but he wanted to do Beverly Hills Ninja, and then passed away like a month later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Half of the creeps in Hollywood were up for the Paul Cerrone role that so iconically played now by Jon Voight.
Yes.
Among them, you had John Malkovich, Sean Connery, Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, to name a few. I'm so glad that Jon Voight took this role.
Yeah, I think of that list. I think
it's just perfect.
He has a lot of these roles, and especially he's weird because you saw him in movies like Midnight Cowboy and The Champ, and obviously Deliverance, and he's such a young, good-looking guy, and he Coming Home even, and he's such a nice guy. But then he made this like real heel turn in the '90s and 2000s where he becomes like this. Except for National Treasure, he's like this. He's almost a bad guy or some kind of sinister plotter in every movie he's in, and all of a sudden he became really old. Like there was no period of time where he was just like a middle-aged guy. All of a sudden he was like, you see him in these movies, he's like, now he's a mustache twirling villain, chewing the scenery.
Pretty much. This was the era of CGI. Jurassic Park had come out a few years before and kind of set a benchmark for what the that technology could bring, and you had a lot of movies that were still trying to figure it out. A lot of studios hadn't perfected it. This was this studio's attempt at a big CGI spectacle. Every second of the CGI Anaconda in this movie cost $100,000. And I'm thinking they got robbed, Mike. That's a lot of money for this.
Gosh.
This is Scorpion King level CGI.
I was
at
just
best.
wondering if Scorpion King, this was about the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't quite pull it off, and there's some things we'll talk about here that will several audible giggles at the quality of some of the CGI here. We'll get to that a little bit later. It was shot almost entirely in Brazil.
Okay, they had that going for them.
They had that. Yeah. This is interesting. The producers just cast everybody who was afraid of snakes. Everybody they cast had a morbid fear of snakes. So I don't understand that vetting process, but that kind of delayed some shooting for some anxiety issues a few times. But I guess when the movie's called Anaconda.
What's your name?
Anaconda.
Anaconda what?
No, just Anaconda.
Anaconda. Anaconda.
Your agent should put those two things together. Well, whatever. It's Hollywood. This was originally scheduled to be a rated R movie, and then they started looking at the final cuts. They realized it was not enough there to really warrant that. They thought, well, we don't have enough dirty stuff. Let's at least hopefully kind of capture a larger audience. And you notice that, Mike, it takes the form of a lot of freaking. They use the word freaking instead of the F word.
There wasn't a lot of. Yeah,
they dropped one F-bomb in here for Ice Cube so you could feel at home. But as you notice, all the freaking is if you look at the dialogue, you can see it's ADR, and the lip sync doesn't really match up very well. It's pretty sad.
That's like TNT levels of editing a movie.
Yeah, so not good there. In addition to the CGI, they had to do some puppets and some animatronics for the beast in this movie, Mike, and it malfunctioned quite frequently. In fact, there's one point where some of the servos and motors went crazy, and the snake went wild and almost killed J-Lo.
Oh wow!
And they actually kept that actual event in the films. so that was much respect for that, I suppose. Speaking of films, this came out in April of that year against Grosse Point Blank, which is pretty good. John Cusack, Minnie Driver.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack for that as well. Previous to that, in the theater, you had the juggernaut Liar Liar that kind of held the box office for several weeks. This one knocked it off the perch. You also had the movie Double Team. Joe favorite
do that one.
Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman made Razzie history with the amount of Razzies that film won, beating out such other Razzie capable movies as The Postman, like for example. So, but that was the big winner that year for bad movies. After this movie came out, you had Fools Rush In the next weekend with Matthew Perry, rest in peace, and Salma Hayek. And then Donnie Brasco and Hard Eight. So the films, they were just kind of warming up. That spring was just a precursor to a massive summer. Mike, of course, the summer of '97 is legendary for its movies. You had The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Con Air, Face Off, Air Force One, Men in Black, Fifth Element, Batman and Robin, just to name a few. So
it gets better.
It gets better, yeah. On the music scene, Mike, because we always feel compelled to talk about music scene in these nostalgia podcasts. You had the week this movie came out, you had "Wannabe" by the Spice Girls.
Who was your favorite? Who was your favorite? Was it Posh?
I was I'm still a Posh. Ginger's a close second, but yeah.
Okay.
But it's funny because as I've got older, I've kind of gravitated a little bit towards Baby and Sporty.
Oh, you like wow, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a barometer for the '90s male, just to determine what Spice Girl you're more infatuated by. There's some sort of metric there. I'm not going to quantify it, but we'll keep going.
I just wish Posh had eaten a sandwich once in a while.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly was the number 2 song.
So, I believe he can do a lot of things.
I believe we can stop making jokes about this guy.
Yeah.
Always. All by Myself by Celine Dion. You had Long December by Counting Crows, one of my least favorite bands of all time. And then you had Every Time I Close My Eyes by Babyface. Mike, just throw in the R&B element there. I don't know why you want to go by the moniker Babyface if you're a grown man, but whatever. So, What do we know?
Made a lot of money.
Yeah, we do know some other things. In 1997, you could get a 6-pack of Pepsi for 99 cents, Mike. Still overpriced in my opinion. You had to be 18 finally to buy cigarettes. They finally made it a law. So if you were under 27, you had to get carded. Prior to that, you could just walk in and buy cigarettes if you're 9 years old, I suppose. This is the year that Garth Brooks famously held a free concert in New York Central Park, biggest concert of all time. And then, meanwhile, Chris Barnes was heating up macaroni cheese in a hot plate. Chris Barnes. I'd like to do a whole show about that ego project, but whatever. This is the year they invented Craigslist, Mike.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that kind of turned into.
Yeah.
And then, sadly, this is the year we lost Burgess Meredith, Mike. Mickey.
Oh, no. Cut me.
He'll kill you, Rock. But it left the nation heartbroken and hopeless, Mike. So,
Get up, you son of a bitch! Because Mickey loves you. Okay?
hopeless enough to maybe want to go out to see a movie, especially about a big anaconda that comes to life and befuddles a crew of LA-based actors in the Amazon basin. The premise of this is ridiculous, and we're going to go out and just kind of prove that point here, Mike. So I don't think there's a whole lot left to say to you.
No, let's get in this turd burger.
All right, Mike, if you would please hit the button. Remember, Mike, you can't scream if you can't breathe.
That's right. And we can't say the F word. We just say freaking a lot.
Freaking. I'm going to do a lot of freaking cursing in this one. So our first image is you get a little scroll, a little text on the screen talking about the lore of the Anaconda. And there's three lies here right away, Mike. The first one is that they claim they get up to 40 feet. They're actually only about 15. They make this ridiculous claim that they enjoy killing. And they regurgitate their prey so they can kill them again. I'm like, they're taking some leaps there for sure.
Yeah, it seems like they're very hungry in this movie too for some reason.
Yeah,
I've always thought of anacondas being really like low metabolism kind of creatures that just kind of hang around like an alligator.
They're more likely to eat other anacondas than they are people.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but and by the way, these anacondas were intentionally made to look more like gaboon vipers. Anacondas don't have that head shape at all.
No, their heads are so tiny.
But as the resident zoology major, I'm just going to let all that stuff go right away because there's no point in discussing.
And I would imagine they're supposed to be green anacondas, and these were like almost glittery colored and like
they
red
probably
stripe.
made them want to look like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. I'm guessing. So.
Yeah, they had a little shine to them. It was like, whoa, that's good. Yeah, what color?
We haven't even seen a person yet. We already know the movie stinks.
So you know what you're in for. Even the music it tells you.
Oh yeah,
turn away.
So it kind of starts out with a very distressed Danny Trejo on this boat, and he's afraid something's coming to get him. Of course, they don't show that, and he decides to climb up on the mast and blow his brains out rather than go through what the impending danger is going to be. So there you go.
Did it bother you instantly that there was a Spanish guy in Brazil? Or did it bothered me at first, but I got used to it, I guess. But
he had a Portuguese partner and a Peruvian partner, so it's
whatever.
It's the United Nations of tomfoolery, Mike.
Yeah, the Mateo uses like 4 different languages.
He doesn't know what he is. We'll get to that jerk in a minute. All right, so I did not get fooled by the rocks that she got. So we get to see J-Lo here. She's playing a young film director who's on this expedition with Tribe Finder. That's all I could feel.
Yes,
Eric Stoltz.
Oh, he's so cool at the start of the movie.
Yeah,
so smooth,
Debonair smoking his cigarettes, being cool. She brings her crew on, and that includes Ice Cube as the photographer. We got the production manager, Kari Wurr. We got the sound guy, Owen Wilson, and then we got the narrator here, played by the Downton Abbey guy. We kind of introduced all their personalities right away.
Oh yeah,
and of course that established all the people are going to get picked off here. But they're here to shoot a documentary on the Shirishama tribe, Mike.
A very elusive tribe that nobody has seen.
Yeah. So on their way out to on the barge, they are starting to haul down the Amazon, and they see during a inevitable rainstorm, they see a ship in distress on the side. And we see this guy screaming, "Help me!" And it's Jon Voight playing this mercenary called Paul Cerrone.
Saron.
Yeah, the Voight, the blue-eyed Paraguayan. They pick him up and save his life, and he's indebted to them, and he's already breaking out the Tony Montana accent, and everything's cool. And of course, there's a nice little the reggae montage, Mike, where they're all partying, and he spearfishes and catches a big Nile fish for them to eat, and they're having a great old time. And
there's even an Ice Cube song in there too.
Yeah, he even quotes his own.
Gotta love that.
His own rap line. That's fun. So they're on their way for this big adventure. Through some conversation, Voight says that he has seen this Shiri Shama tribe, and he helps volunteers to guide them in return for the favor for them saving his life. So they start, taking various routes through the Amazon at his request. You just think there's something up there, Mike. You can just tell. So one night, as they're kind of anchored in the evening, trope infinity plus one, where the two young lovers go out to explore on their own, and as soon as they start, with the hanky panky, there's this wild boar that chases them, which is ultimately shot by Cerrone. I guess that nobody realized that there are no boars in the Amazon, but who cares?
That's all right. No, we're past that.
Yeah. But yeah, whatever. So as they take out to leave the next day, they hit another snafu where they get some ropes caught in the propeller. So Eric Stoltz and some other guys go down there in their scuba gear to untie it. And as Eric Stoltz down there, a wasp is in his breather and bites his mouth. And then he gets up and gets a tracheotomy done real quickly by Cerrone, who knows how to do that too, apparently. And then that's it. We're done with Eric Stoltz. He just goes to bed. The rest of his movie, he's just doing it bedside. Don't have to worry about him anymore.
He must have gotten a call from his agent too late during filming.
He's like, wait. He did his own version of Marty McFly. He goes, I'm not doing this movie.
I'm not doing it. Yeah, I read the ending of this, and I'm out.
They probably didn't want to recast him. They said, well, you know what? Well, you just be paralyzed for the rest of the
movie. Bring in Michael J. Fox. That'd be funny.
You just go to sleep now. But there you go. So they end up taking a detour yet again to get him to the hospital, and this conveniently leads them past the boat where Danny Trejo was. And as the camera kind of zooms in, and we see a picture of Danny Trejo and Mateo, the captain of the boat, and Voight. Apparently they're these poachers that have been stealing snakes. He rips down the news clipping real quick before anybody can see it, and gets his stash of snake catching gear, like, and the pennies dropped, right? So we know what's happening. So as they're leaving, the snake comes and kills Mateo. He kind of lunges at him and punches him, which I thought was kind of cool. And Mateo was polite enough to put his hair up in a man bun as he was getting killed, because when he gets struck by the snake, he's got hair dangling, and then as he's getting squeezed up, he's got up in a ponytail. So he found time to go out styling, I suppose, there, Mike. But this is the reveal of the CGI of this dumb looking snake, and it didn't really pay off, Mike. That reveal doesn't really sell it very well. It's just another fake animated snake, not very scary.
Rubber monster,
in my opinion. Yeah, I'd rather see a Japanese guy in a suit than this, but whatever. So by this time, the pennies dropped, and we understand that Voight reveals his true mission. He has hijacked the mission to capture this live snake, and they're all at his mercy now, Mike.
I think I'd rather see Bela Lugosi wrestle a rubber octopus.
Hey, I'm going to talk about rubber octopus later, but in a different context. So it's funny you said that. Spoiler. But so now they're kind of stuck because he's a mercenary and they're just a bunch of LA film students. They don't know what to do, so they decide they're going to catch the snake. And first thing he needs to do is he needs to get bait, Mike. So he shoots a monkey.
Yes.
Not shock the monkey, but he shoots the monkey.
If you were still at that point a little unsure that he was a bad guy, he shoots a monkey.
Yeah, he goes full heel here. Yeah. This is fantastic because Voight has said that he kept this monkey. in real life.
Oh, that's cool.
He kept the monkey, but he won't disclose where he keeps it. It's kept in an undisclosed location. But again, the scientist in me keeps wanting to pop out. Snakes do not eat dead things. They would not eat a dead monkey, but they certainly wouldn't eat a dead monkey on a hook in a river, angling for it.
Snake on. Yeah.
Did you notice that the monkey got regurgitated too, Mike?
Yes. Right.
He spit the monkey at the
Spit it out.
other guy. Yeah, but
these snakes were very, very sentient and aware of everything every
sure
emotion
were.
going on behind these people.
They're monsters, Mike.
I guess.
But yeah, so there's this Jaws ripoff scene where Voight is trying to catch the snake with the rod and reel, and there's a little set piece here where some people get we get thinned out a little bit, but the cast gets thinned out a little bit where Gary meets his end here as well. No more Owen Wilson, sorry.
Yeah.
Just like I wonder if he made it longer than Gruber in this one, at least.
That's
Our Armageddon days where he didn't make it either.
Gruber. Oh, still
Yes,
thinking about
the
it.
snake kills everybody and then spits up Jon Voight's monkey. Hashtag Jon Voight's hidden monkey. Make it go viral, guys. Help us out. So that kind of leads to the next kind of big set piece where they understand the futility of the situation. They decided to do a sting on him. So J-Lo gussies up, puts on some makeup, starts to seduce him that evening, and then as he lets down his guard, Ice Cube and Downton Abbey guy hit him over the head with a golf club, and they take Jon Voight, they duct tape his arms together, and now he's captive, right? So they figured it out. They're getting back home now, I guess. So
The whole ticking clock of getting Eric Stoltz to the hospital kind of just faded away, right?
I'm sure getting a full tracheotomy in the middle of the jungle is safe too, because no infection, there's no
Yeah, it just
bacteria they got in the jungle.
They were on a rush to get him there, and then by the end of the movie, he's okay. He never went to the hospital. Amazing.
Yeah. So as Voight is bound to the mast of the ship, Kari Werk comes out with a knife because she's distraught because she was romantically involved with Owen Wilson, and she feels he's responsible for his death. So she's going to stab him, and of course he just does the old judo chop.
That jump he does, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I almost wanted to rewind it to watch it over and over again, how he does that vertical jump from the sitting position. That was incredible. I don't know how that's humanly possible.
But he chokes her out.
Super Voight.
And it starts this big, final set piece where there's all of this, final battle. They're all kind of fighting each other. Kari Werk gets choked out. Ice Cube gets stabbed. J-Lo gets roughed around a bit. She actually bites Jon Voight like Jon Voight bit Kramer.
That's right.
She takes a big chunk out of his leg. So the Downton Abbey guy gets killed, and even Eric Stoltz gets slightly disturbed in his bed through all the commotion.
I think he woke him up.
Yeah, he wakes up long enough to inject a tranquilizer dart into Voight's back, and he falls into the river, but the dart comes loose, implying that he's still out there. Mike, scary, right?
Hard to kill, man. He's like Steven Seagal.
So, now we're just down to J-Lo and Ice Cube, so they decide they're going to try to go find some fuel in the ship from other ships they found, and when they walk into this little dinghy, they walk in this little
what was that? Was it
a dock, like a harbor that they had for the random boats that go through, and they find some fuel in the form of some giant oil cans. So they go to get them, and then they fall right into Jon Voight's trap, Mike. Yeah, he pulls up the net, and Jon Voight has come back to life. But lo and behold, the Anaconda's in there with him, Mike. And for some reason, the Anaconda decides to let go of J-Lo and Ice Cube to go chase after Jon Voight, who's significantly smaller in body mass and appetite.
And he had covered Ice Cube and Jenny in monkey blood, but he hadn't known him. But the snake was just held a grudge against him.
I guess so.
Amazing. And we have to interject here that
It's like a
his
Captain
whole
Ahab thing.
he doesn't want to kill the snake, which is the most
No.
ludicrous part of the whole story. He wants to actually have it
He
as
wants to
like
capture them and sell
new
it.
animal somewhere, and it's like, dude, how are you going to even train? There you go.
I'm tired of talking about this, Mike. Are you? Can we just
So
stop?
close. We're almost there.
All
Almost
right.
there.
Anyway, so that's the big thing, and so the snake goes after Jon Voight and starts to eat him, and I like the esophagus cam you get here, Mike,
Yeah, that was a good one.
where you get to see from the inside of the snake, John getting swallowed whole.
That was $1 million scene, probably, if you count the seconds
Yeah.
watching that.
So yeah, and the iconic part of this movie is that a couple scenes later, the snake comes back through and regurgitates a very bloated, sticky, gooey, pre-chewed Jon Voight, and he falls on J-Lo's lap and he winks at her, and that's it. So that's great. But they immolate the snake with the fuel they have, set him on fire, and then there's one last jump scare, of course, because they hadn't hit all the tropes yet. And Ice Cube gets to stick an axe in the thing's head, and that's over. So there you go.
Finally.
And then they sail back home with Amy the gorilla. No, wait, sorry, wrong movie.
And then they get to see the hidden tribe. It just pops out of the woods, and
just
in the little rowboats. You're like, wow, look out.
Conveniently right there, like the dry land and water world, right?
Yeah, it's like, how did they survive snake attacks? What did they do? Did they cover themselves in monkey blood?
We're making too many references to monkeys. We're in dangerous territory, Mike. And of course, they have the stupid ending scene where you see a bunch of eggs being hatched, leading you to believe there's going to be a sequel. The only problem with that is anacondas give birth to live young, like not eggs, but whatever.
Whatever, man.
I mean, all they had to do was just go on Google, which had posted its domain name that year, to do all this research, but whatever. And that's the movie, and it's over, and there's a horrible song, and then you can go home now.
89 minutes, too. They got the classic,
yeah.
right under the hour and a half, man. Wow.
Yep, felt like 289.
It was so long. I can't believe that was an hour and a half. It felt, just watching it, I was like, this is really dragging it.
That was the one thing that I was optimistic about. I was like, oh, this is not a great movie, but it says 89 minutes. So, like, okay, that's going to be a breeze.
Yeah. After that, I wanted to get the Kandiru Raku in me.
All right. Be nice. All right, so let's talk about awards and accolades, Mike. So, of course, because this is America, it had a $17 million opening, which is huge, given its budget. It ended up doing $66 million, so it was a relatively big hit. An international audience gave it $137 million more. It gave birth to, I think, 4 sequels. Hunt for the Blood Orchid in 2004, Offspring in 2008 with David Hasselhoff.
Oh, my.
You had Trail of Blood in 2009, and they had the epic Lake Placid versus Anaconda for 2015. We're getting into like sci-fi movie territory here, I think.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, the original had 6 Razzie nominations. It won for Worst Screen Couple. That was Voight and the Snake. As the couple. It won 2 Stinkers Bad Movies Awards, one for the most annoying fake accent, which it strongly deserved.
Wow.
And then the other win was for Worst Supporting Actor for Voight. This is a new category we've never heard of from some organization called the All Deaf Award. Ice Cube was the winner of the All Deaf Award, Mike, for Best Black Survivor in a Horror Movie.
Yeah, that's one trope they didn't follow.
Exactly. So there you go. Buck the trend, why don't you? Even Fangoria gave it the worst movie award, so yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's classified as a horror movie, which makes kind of sense.
In one context, I suppose. Yeah,
there's a lot of horribleness to it.
I was horrified that I chose to do this movie. But there you go. It's got some sort of cult status. I don't want to talk about that here as we review the movie. I don't know entirely how deserved that is, but we'll get to that here in a minute. It's got on the a list of the 100 most enjoyable bad movies. I could maybe see that.
Okay.
But Mike, I think the big thing about the accolades here is a grumpy nostalgia tradition. It's getting remade this year. I think the trailer's actually out now.
Wow.
And guess who's starring in it, Mike?
I cannot even hazard a guess.
Jack Black. Oh, good. Oh, good. The worst movie in the world by the worst actor in the world. This is going to be great. I think Paul Rudd's actually wrangled in this too. So.
Oh no! So they're really going for the camp, aren't they? You might as well just throw in. I don't even know. You might. Amy Schumer maybe is like
I was
J-Lo.
Yeah, I was doing pretty good here with this podcast until I said that line. Now I don't. Now I'm sad again. So, all right. So being sad is probably a good time for retrospection, Mike. So let's put it through our grumpy meter. This is the podcast premise where we kind of go back and review movies we watched as young film goers, then we watch them again as grumpy old jerks and decide how our opinions change one way or the other. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and talk about your first watch, and then your most recent watch, and your thoughts and observations on both of those.
Pedro Pascal is probably in the remake too. First time I ever saw, I didn't watch it in the theater. I was not attracted to seeing a quote unquote horror movie, with Jennifer Lopez. That wasn't me. The first time I saw it was when we saw it at the Riff Tracks when they did it. About 7 or 8 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to watch it. If you're actually going to see it, any of our listeners out there, if you're actually going to try and watch this movie, maybe watch the remake. I don't know, but watch the Riff Track version of it. It makes it a lot more palatable. It goes down really easy, a lot better than Voight.
Yeah. For those unaware, Riff Tracks is a spinoff of Mystery Science Theater. And it's essentially guys that are making fun of the movie as it's happening. We encourage that. Do not watch this movie alone like we did.
Good one. Yeah.
It's easier to watch these movies when you have someone to make.
Yes. That was my next one. Luckily, my wife was kind of watching it with me, and she was able to throw in some quips, and it did make it easier to kind of just poke fun. And I couldn't. You definitely don't watch it in a quiet theater where you can't talk, because this is this kind of movie. You're like, oh, come on. You're saying just like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar. You're constantly going, come on. Yeah.
Yep.
But you have to wait 40 minutes before you see the first snake eating, which is entirely too long for a movie that's supposed to be this campy and horror. It's unlike Jaws. You see too much of the monster. It'd be much more effective to see some of these people kind of like taken away, and all you see is like the snake's tail. You know what I mean? Just
like a cat people approach or something. Like I
wish
the snake didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The fact that they actually had to constantly show the snake's face, it looks stupid. It looks really dumb when they show it.
The screaming and the growling, snakes don't do that either.
Yeah, I know they hiss, but like the hissing was overdone on this. It's just like, really?
It wasn't even an anaconda, so why not just put a rattle tail?
Exactly. Put some headers and some decals on it. Add some neon running lights on.
Some fangs and some fins.
Yeah, give them a hat.
Running boards.
But yeah, the whole idea of like kind of a mishmash of people, a riffraff kind of crew on this boat that's going down a river. Apocalypse Now or African Queen is not. That's the first movies I'm thinking of when I'm watching this. Oh, this is kind of cool. It's like a little boat going down the river. But the snakes, just so silly. The Jon Voight thing is really off-putting. I don't even know. I guess it could be been played a little bit more serious and not have to have somebody who was like so just over the top. I mean, it was just so silly.
Yeah.
Characters are cardboard. I mean, Owen Wilson, the stupid, all Voight has to say to him is, maybe $1 million, Gary. It's like, and that's it. That's all it takes.
Oh, he's in love with him then.
Yeah, he becomes brainwashed instantly. It's like, and the heel turn is expected immediately. It's just going to happen. But it's just the bad acting. I mean, Lopez and Ice Cube. He's really a fish out of water in this. It's just so off-putting. When you said Martin Lawrence, I was thinking, you know what? Why not? Why not have more like camp into it? They almost tried to be too serious, but they didn't straddle that line too well of like, being serious and funny. And they could have really made this just so. And when you say Jack Black, that almost kind of fits with a movie.
You know where they're
stupid
going with
as
that one.
Yeah.
It's Jack Black and Paul Rudd. It's going to be self-referential and cheeky and
yeah. So anyway.
stuff.
This was my final thought. This was the worst movie we've seen, and Congo's a close second, but.
Okay.
Congo had so many different characters doing the fake accent and so many just cameo appearances and that were so silly, and the monkeys were dumb.
You stupid monkey! You shut up.
And of course the apes were just really over the top, but still the fake snake, I can't get over that. It was just too much, and it was dumb. So there you go.
Okay. Hashtag dumb monkeys.
Hashtag, yeah.
All right, Mike. So it did have a Congo vibe. So I did everything wrong with this movie on both instances. So the first time I saw this, I saw it in the theater by myself, essentially. I was waiting for my wife to get off work. So I drove into the town where she was living at the time, and I just kind of waited it out at a Saturday matinee. Oof. And I was not pleased. I was just curious to the CGI like it was with a lot of films at that era. And not really impressed at all. And then I watched it again this afternoon after I recommended us doing this movie. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I own it. I accept responsibility. I will stand to be judged. I'm not afraid by my maker. But again, it was the same thing where I wanted some. I had you. We watched this movie together. It probably would have been tolerable if I would have watched the Riff Tracks version of it. I probably would. But watching it by yourself is something you had to put yourself through. It's a chore. And I think this movie gets off the hook a lot because it's a great bad movie. I keep saying that review over and over and over again. It's an enjoyable bad movie. It's a cult movie. But I'm gonna argue. I'm gonna try to counter that point, Mike. I don't think it was. Those movies exist in the world, but I don't think this is one of them, and I'll tell you why. I think this movie was not meant to be put into that classification. I don't think it was intentionally made.
No.
I think they tried to make a legitimate movie here.
A movie you spent $45 million on in 1997 is not a cult movie or campy movie.
They were trying to do something here. The only exception is Jon Voight was in on the joke. If all the other cast members and the writers and the director were in on the joke, like Jon Voight was, then I would say, okay, I get it. This is like a John Waters movie or something at the very least. But I don't think they had the intention of this being a cult movie 30 years ago. I think they legitimately thought they had like a Jurassic Park, Jaws, King Kong thing going on here, and that really got me angry.
When you put it that way, you're so right. It's like if everybody had had done the scenery chewing kind of acting style that he did, or just kind of just fully embrace it, it might have been different.
If anybody else would have read The Room, who was doing a scene with Jon Voight, they might have figured this out. But they all tried to go, try hard on it, and here we are, 30 years later, making fun of it in our stupid little podcast. So there you go. So, Mike, we talked about at the very onset of the podcast about this genre, the B movie, which I don't think this was, but the B movie monster movie thing that's been in Hollywood since really the 50s, when they would make a bunch of cheap movies designed to just turn a quick profit to be shown at drive-ins, and it's usually about some large thing attacking people.
Yes,
we kind of grew up on those films, and this one tries to be something to that effect. So we thought for this week's installment, if you just made the list, pal, we go back into the history books and talk about some of our other favorite B movies featuring giant things, giant stuff, Mike. So
giant stuff.
They could be horror movies or sci-fi or whatever. But why don't you talk about some of your favorite examples of giant creature B movies, Mike?
All right, I'm gonna go in chronological order. I'm gonna start off with a movie called Them from 1954, which
Good one.
One of my favorite movies when I was a kid. As far as like a scary movie that had that, there are a lot of movies in the 50s, like you had giant locusts, giant snakes. And why not giant ants? And the premise of this movie was Them. And it was in New Mexico, of course, like the epicenter of like atomic testing. And apparently the atomic radiation is able to make these giant ants. And they terrorize these ranches around.
Hollywood screenwriters took advantage of that radiation,
Oh, yeah.
and they, oh my god,
Yes,
root
like I
cause
said,
for everything.
people blew up, got really big, and
Yep.
all kind of the mutations. But yeah, the best thing about the movie though is they don't show you the ants right away, and like
Yeah,
and it's very it's Jaws like in the way that they present the monsters, and they
Yeah.
it's obviously kind of like just really bad kind of like layering kind of filming where they have the actors standing in front of what looks like a zoom in of an anthill to make the ants look ginormous, but it has James Arness,
Yeah.
Peter Graves is in a movie about giant locusts. Why not James Arness in a movie about ants? And James Whitmore, they're like cops investigating it, and really good movie. And like I said, the best part is the little kid at the end, or near the end, when she finally she's been terrorized. They have no idea what she's been terrorized about. Then she sees the ants and she goes, "Them!" And it's a great scene in the movie.
yeah. I was traumatized by that movie. It's like when that guy gets caught in the pincers, and
Yes. Oh,
that's horrifying.
That's camp. I mean,
Yeah.
it's scary back then as far as the CGI. You look at it now, it's like, okay, that's kind of funny, but it's still scary.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right, mine's kind of along the same lines. Mine's for a movie from 1958 called Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. And again, this is an interesting thing. There's some masked feminism in here. It's an interesting tale about this married couple that's not very not doing very well. Their marriage is in trouble. He's a philanderer, and she gets taken advantage of, and she happens to be near a cosmic flash of radiation, and she grows to 50 feet. Mike, that provides some logistic challenges, of course, Mike. But it kind of affects her brain a little bit, but it all ties into the affair and all the other weird stuff she has with her husband. And even at 50 feet, she's powerless against this man, which that was the symbolic nature of it, I suppose. But there's the great scene at the end where she's trying to she's going off the deep end, and she's wearing this bikini fashioned out of several bed sheets. Of course, it's a bikini, right? And she's walking through the town, crashing things like Godzilla. She's yelling, "Harry, Harry!" And she picks him up like a little rag doll in her hand, and the cops, let her have it. But it doesn't matter. The bullets just bounce off her, but they decide that they can, shoot the electrical poles around her, and then, the electrical cables electrocute her, and then by default electrocute her husband. So it's kind of this Romeo and Juliet kind of ending at the thing here, but it's more about thematic elements of feminism and sexism, things like that behind it. But on the surface, it's just this giant woman who's terrorizing the desert. But I think it was remade as an HBO movie very early on in HBO's career. I think Daryl Hannah was in it. It was written and directed by Christopher Guest, which is not too bad either. It was very similar to like War of the Colossal Beast, which is essentially the same thing where, a guy gets caught in front of a nuclear fallout, and he grows up really big, and he's got to wear a big diaper.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they always had what I like the 50s. They always had trouble with the scale, right? They always had issues like there's a traumatic scene where he impales a guy with like a needle, like an injection needle, and it's like completely scaled wrong. Like he throws the thing like a dart, it pierces the guy. Again, those kind of things just scared me as a kid, but I still remember them like 50 years later. So there you go. Attack of the 50-Foot One, Mike. That's my first pick.
All right. My second one is another one of those movies where like they're big animals, but this surprisingly wasn't from atomic radiation, but it's more from chemicals, and that's Night of the Lepus, which is movie from the early 70s about giant rabbits, that are
horrifying.
they're attacking the ranchers again. It's kind of like them in a way, but these are rabbits that are in Texas, and it has Bones from Star Trek. He's one of the scientists studying this along, and anyway, they've noticed that a lot of the coyotes have been killed, and the rabbits are taking over. I guess it's trying to be like kind of like Australia, and they're wondering on a way they can get rid of these rabbits. One of these numbskulls decides to introduce hormones to some of these rabbits, and the little girl takes one of the rabbits, of course, and away from all the rest, and the rest are kind of, I don't know if they're euthanized or whatever, but the rabbit she takes away and replaces with a control rabbit. That rabbit comes really big out in the wild and has more rabbits, and next thing you know, they're overrunning people. They smash up houses. Some of the greatest miniatures ever are in this movie that show little rabbits kind of walking around. The funniest part of this movie is they're trying to make the rabbits look menacing and scary. But you're like, no, you just don't buy it. It doesn't matter that you have a miniature of a rabbit kind of putting his paw on it and stepping on it. It just doesn't work.
No, you want to pick it up and cuddle it.
I know, he's so cute. And the saddest part is, like, when they're actually fighting, like, the last battle in the movie, they're like, they use electrical fences on these rabbits to kind of, like, fence them in, literally, and all these bunnies are getting shocked. And it's clearly not one of those movies at the end that says, no animals were harmed.
Yeah.
No. These rabbits are legitimately, like, being electrocuted, and you can literally almost see, like, the fur flying off of them. It's like, oh my God, they actually got away with this, filming it? And again, it's like what you were saying with the Giant Woman movie. It's like the scale is always a little bit off. Like I said, sometimes the rabbits look like they're 50 feet high. Sometimes they look like they're about, I don't know, 2 feet high. It's like, okay. Anyway, you see it clown on a lot of. We just did a movie recently on a podcast that was showing this movie in the background. I can't remember which one it was. One of our recent podcasts.
It was The Matrix.
Was it The Matrix? Yeah. There was another one too that just showed like a brief scene of it, and it was like the scene where the rabbits are getting electrocuted, and it's like, wow. And you see it, you see a lot of times where that movie is a cult classic just because of the idea of rabbits becoming large and attacking people. But anyway, Night of the Lepus.
That's a good one, Mike. Another classic. Mine is not so much a classic as it is one of those, I guess, lost kind of cult type movies. This was an H.G. Wells story called Food of the Gods from 1976. I remember seeing this. This was on this was on several horror creature feature late night episodes for me. This is essentially this from the bubbling crude out of the ground comes this weird substance that animals start eating, and essentially like rats and wasps and
I remember the wasps. Yeah,
these things just start growing, and of course, this is all in Canada, of course, so it's even more horrifying. But they decide that they've got to like understand what's happening. But of course, human greed comes to the human condition. The greed comes in where the villains of the story want to like figure out how to get this substance, the food of the gods, FOTG they call it, and process it and use it, and like dairy farmers, right? So there's this big scene where they kill all these rats, which were horrifying at the time because they didn't get the scale kind of right. But all the other creatures that got big until get killed out. But at the end, you see this dairy cow that's eating it, and in a lone field, and he starts growing really big. And then, like the last scene, there's these kids drinking that milk, right? It suggests that these kids are going to, go all baby Huey, get really big. But it was kind of a scary kind of like shock ending especially for little kids, but total mid-70s garbage. But I remember that movie just being a lot of fun to watch, and it had like a lot of weird rear projection special effects and stuff with a composite like the giant animals live action.
Yeah, I remember that
in front of other people is kind of weird, but it freaked me out as a kid, of course. So that's gonna be my second one. Food of the Gods from 1976.
All these movies are freak you out as a kid. I just got reminded of a movie that was based on that same H.G. Wells book. It was called Village of the Giants.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about these teenagers who come in contact with a goo, and they start eating it. And one of them's Bo Bridges, of all people. But it's a silly movie.
Is it Ron Howard in that one, too?
Yeah, he's a little kid who's like, he helps out Tommy Kirk, like try to defeat these giants who... realize they can do damage, and they're teenagers. So anyway, tangent. My only honorable nominee would be the Boggy Creek creature. He's not really
not the little creature though.
No, not the little. Not the little one looks just like the big one.
I saw the little.
But the big one is like he's hairy. He's covered in hair, and he emits a strong foul odor. and he's like just a large person.
Like Ted Nugent.
But yeah, but he's covered. He's got a little boggy, and But anyway, that's a Charles Pierce production.
You got to tend to your fires, Mike, so you don't get you.
Yeah, and you put some broccoli rubber bands in your head. My third choice will be a more recent movie called Lake Placid.
There you go.
I think you might have mentioned it earlier because apparently I didn't realize that Anaconda and Lake, the Lake
it's
Placid
like a Freddy versus Jason thing. It's
monster
the mashup.
thing,
Yeah.
So,
Who do you think would win the fight between?
Exactly. But yeah,
isn't it funny that premise that we said as little kids, like Hollywood producers actually use that for movies now?
I know, like that's an actual thing. It's like, really, guys? Is that the creativity levels? That's
not bad, right?
Yeah. But anyway, Lake Placid is set in Maine, and it has Betty White in it, of all people. But yeah, Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman,
like a cop investigating with Bridget Fonda, and there's mysterious deaths in this pond, and half the movie is figuring out, wow, what's causing this? And there's like a scientist that thinks he has his own theory about it, and you end up finding it's a giant crocodile. And, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, and then the rest of the movie is how to get rid of them. They use like a giant cow as bait, and they dangle them from a helicopter and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
I forget eventually how our crocodile meets his demise, but apparently he really isn't dead if he fights.
He keeps going,
an anaconda later. So there you go.
Didn't that feature several scenes of very foul-mouthed Betty White?
Yes, this is where she got she was like a neighbor that was
very
work very blue.
To that point, I think the makers of that movie knew what they were doing, and I think I think they knew it was camp.
They leaned into it.
Yeah, they owned it, and it became good. But the Amazon guys did not, apparently. All right, so that's a good one, Mike. So my last pick here is kind of along those lines, but we got to throw out a couple of things, of course. King Kong and Jaws, of course, are just the benchmarks for these things, and that's essentially what all these movies are really trying to be. But prior to that, there was a movie in 1966 called War of the Gargantuas. Right? And this is one of those. It is a kaiju movie, Japanese monster movie.
And we had to mention Godzilla.
It's unique for several reasons. One, it's Brad Pitt and Nicolas Cage's favorite movie of all time. It was the film that inspired Quentin Tarantino to want to become a filmmaker. But I wish this was a video podcast because you really have to see what the gargantuans look like to understand how stupid this movie was. But they were essentially Frankenstein. One was the green version of Frankenstein, and one was his younger brother, a little brown version of Frankenstein. They were the gargantuas, but they lumber around in their rubber suits, and they've got like Pete Rose haircuts, Mike, and they just brawl. All they do is they just fight the whole time. They're not really sure what they're fighting about, and I know the younger brother's trying to make the older monster brother not be so violent, but that only counters more violence. Russ Tamblin's in this as the American.
Oh wow!
He's trying to set things right, but I liked it as a kid because the monsters were in just about every scene, and they're wearing their big rubber suits, Mike. And what I love is you'd think this unique species would have some sort of attack style or combat style, right, Mike? But
right.
What they really look like were jobbers for the WWF. They would just come in and they just swing and kick and gut punch and roll around and headlock. And, every time they would throw a haymaker, the armpit in their suit would divot out. It's ridiculous. But it was one of those monster battle movies that they didn't do a lot of slow motion stuff. So when they fell into a prop, it would just smash in real time. It just looked like people were breaking things. It had nothing to do with any scale or scope. It was one of those movies I just really loved as a kid, and I Google it, everybody. You need to see what I'm talking. Once you see what I'm talking about,
I'm kind of curious now.
This thing might actually make a little more sense, but there you go. So there you go. B movies featuring giant stuff, Mike. It's brought to you by the cast of Grumpy Nostalgia. Okay, Mike. Well, I think given the fact that we had to watch this movie and then talk about it in such a short amount of time, I think we need to call it a night. I don't have a whole lot of gas left in me. This is a school night, so you got to get go back to work. But I want to just mention to everybody, if you liked what you heard today for some reason, make sure you check us out on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia. Please send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com if you have a request or comments about the show. Check out our webpage at grumpynostalgia.buzzsprout.com. You can find an archive of all our shows and little contributor sections. You find out what me and Mike are all about. We've got a list of our favorite podcasts and all that stuff, so check us out there. If you are listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please rate our show. Rate, please. We don't ask that a lot, but that's a great way for us to improve the algorithm with all these tracking services. So if you were kind enough to rate our show or even leave a review, that would be well appreciated by your team. Thank you so much. Mike, we did a lot tonight. I'm not going to ask too much more of you. Is there anything else you want to say to the gang before we get out of here?
I just want to quote Jennifer Lopez from Anaconda. This film was supposed to be my big break, but it turned out to be a big disaster.
Good night, baby bird. All right, so for Mike James, this is Justin, and we'll see you again next time.